Actually been here 51 years as of February the 2nd. I had just left school, so needless to say, I needed a job. And there was a posting and for the payroll office at MCV. I applied for the job, and voila, I got the job. When I first came, it was like I was actually working for MCV, and there were, a few buildings, and now it has become almost like a city. VCU has expanded so much, but we're very thankful for that because of the research that VCU, MCV is doing, the health sciences is doing. We need that.
Well, I've enjoyed being able to make progress and build the Department of Psychiatry. And I've enjoyed the fact that I have had great support. So, survival and building was pretty neat. Creating a department where our highest priority was integrity. Psychiatric research is critical because if we're going to do better for people in the future, it's not going to come from managed care. It's going to come from building research and understanding how the environment and the brain work together. For some reason, perhaps old history, there's some people who think that treatment outcomes in psychiatry are not good, but actually they're as good or better than in the rest of medicine.
Well, when I first came here to work at VCU, I enjoyed every day. And it got better and better each day. I look back when I walk for lunch and just look around and say, wow, man, I have seen a lot of changes at this university. We were on 327 West Main Street, which is now in the business building. And I didn't even know that that little spot could, be the foundation for a great big building like that. I think I heard that that might have been an old funeral home, because it had a basement, and it was a door that you had to lift up, and look, to get down there. And I, went down there one day, looked and peeped, and I saw a light. I said, nah, watching too many horror shows. Well, my biggest accomplishment is at this point right now, sitting here, talking to you, being interviewed for being glued to my chair for so many years. I ain't gonna say the number, 45.
As of August of last year, I had worked at VCU for 45 years. I know that's hard to believe, and of course y'all are looking at me saying, how could she have worked 45 years? I was a child when I started, just so you know. I went to Bridgewater College in the beginning and was a chemistry major. And even though I was good at chemistry, I did not want to teach chemistry. And I thought, I'd like to be a nurse, which is interesting because my mother was a nurse. And all my life I grew up and people were saying, are you going to be a nurse just like your mother? Well, those of you who know me, I don't do anything just like anybody else because I'm just who I am. But all of a sudden, that's exactly what I wanted to do. So, of course, there's no place better to go than VCU School of Nursing, and that's where I went. So, I had said that I wanted to have children who could talk back to me, and instead of children in the NICU. And so, boy, did I get what I asked for. You need to be careful what you ask for, because sometimes you get it and much more than you ever anticipated. But I did take the job, and it was a good fit. I can tell you that.
Graduated my PhD from University of Georgia in 1974, and then I had applied for a few jobs, including the one here at VCU, and fortunately it worked out, and I was able to secure the position, and I've been here ever since. after we sort of got settled into our apartment in Richmond, I had a whole bunch of boxes of books and stuff. And I came and parked in the alley behind the old Life Science building and trekked up 3 flights of stairs carrying all these heavy books, right? And just sweating up a storm the whole way. I came to find out next week and actually went into the office. There's actually an elevator in the building. Anyway, so go figure, right?
I was going to college and I wanted to work somewhere where I thought we had an important mission. And I looked into, healthcare, maybe as a clinician, and I started down that path and veered off a few times. And but anyway, I just found the work very stimulating. I went to college, I came back. This was always my part-time job, and then when I graduated from college, it became my permanent job.
It was Tuesday, September 2nd, 1975, Sanger Hall B1, and our offices were right above the animal control facility, which I have to admit got pretty noisy at times. I took the GRTC Param Express. I wore a jacket and tie, and I later determined that it was much too formal, so I didn't do that anymore. And also on the first day, I noticed that around lunchtime, some of the faculty members and the students were heading out with gym bags. So I was wondering what that was about. I got an invitation the next day, and it turns out they were going to the MCV gym. And that started for me a string of about 30 years of pretty much daily MCV gym visits, which was a wonderful way to interact with our students and faculty, and students and faculty of other programs too. So that was fun.
I came to work for MCV in 1960. Things were a lot different then. West Hospital was the main building then. What we had was just one small electric shop. Well, we had about 25 people. Like on the 4th floor in West Hospital was a ward, so you had a lot of people just all together in one big ward back in the east wing back there. So you had to work over top of them and with ladders all up over top of them. So it was a lot different back then. And when I went there was still iron lungs in the sub-basement. Was still, the polio thing was just starting to get over. So there was still a lot of that going on there at that time. West Hospital was beautiful back then. All the brass and all, they kept really shine, really looked great. I'm trying to think when we went to VCU, when we went up and took the other campus from RPI, which was Richmond Professional Institute. We went up and started doing those buildings up there, and of course that really changed. Everything changed a lot. We changed that a lot, and so and then it became VCU, still just MCV, but we still had the MCV campus. So I know everything's called VCU now, but that end of it was still the MCV campus. And of course, West Hospital wasn't the main thing anymore. We built Main Hospital. We built Main Hospital in '78, I think, because I was a big part of that.
The students are the primary reinforcer, I think, for many of us. And now that said, I really enjoy my research and everything else, but that also involves the students, because I have both. Over the years, I've been fortunate enough to have a number of graduate students and undergraduate students working in my labs. And I would say typically over the years, I've had anywhere from 4 to 6 undergraduate students in my lab too. So, and I always like to tell people that our legacy is going to be in our students. Not too many of us get to win Nobel Prizes or do groundbreaking, earth-shattering research, but if we're lucky, we'll have some good students who will come after us and sort of carry on for us afterwards.
I remember going back to a back office, and there was like a group of women, heads down, working, and we all called each other Mr. and Mrs. And that was the formality. And I remember thinking, this is really unusual to me. And of course, that's rarely done today. But there was just a lot of respect, and that was pretty obvious. And I was really grateful to have that part-time role. I would say after we implemented what we called PARS, it was a McKesson revenue cycle solution, in 1991, the Soviet Union had dissolved, and the State Department of the federal government formed these partnerships. And I guess they assigned it to USAID, and I was asked to be one of the members of the team. So from 1992 possibly through 1996, I spent time in Russia working in Vladivostok. which is in the Far East. I had my colleagues came here and worked. We got to present our work in St. Petersburg and Moscow, and it was really just a wonderful experience.
I had the opportunity to teach 2 generations of students, so I thought that was pretty neat. We had 2 father-daughter pairs who were graduates of our program, so I liked that a lot. And I think another thing with the students, and we had a tradition for several years where we would ask the students to turn in their CV in the first semester in our program. And generally those are pretty sparse, 1 or 2 pages. And I would save those, and when the students got around to graduating for the PhD 5 years later, they would send me their CV to review, and I would send them their original CV that they submitted 5 years ago so they can see the growth that they had in the program. So that was pretty neat. And I'm able to keep in touch with several of our alumni through email and through LinkedIn. So I think the relationship I had with the students over the years is probably the best thing that happened. Yep.
We were pretty busy back then, so, and now I switched over from being electrical. I ran the electrical shop for years. I actually ran the construction electrical shop for years. And then being a building inspector, and so I didn't do the electrical anymore. What they did, they created zones. Instead of us having, like, we had one big construction shop, and then that ran all the work around all the buildings and did all that stuff. And then we had maintenance shops that at that time that had separated back in the late 60s or early 70s. Like I said, I switched over and took an inspector's job, and now I've been an inspector for 25 years. So that's what I do now.
One thing that I learned during my time there is I am very passionate for the mentally ill. It is what I want to make sure that I share and do. You know, there's nothing better than seeing someone who you watched suffer with mental illness come out on the other side. You know, the families of those who suffer need our help. They need our understanding. And what better than a nurse to help that?
I never thought I'd live to see the day when the prejudice and stigma against mental health, those of us who take care of patients with emotional problems, I never thought I'd live to see the day when the stigma was reducing. And so my hope as I talk to my colleagues is that when people have excessive anxiety, depression, sometimes even think that life isn't worth living, that if they reach out and get some help, they can move to a very different place where life becomes worth living. And I'll also tell you a very sweet story. I once received a check for $5 from a woman who said she had a son who was schizophrenic, and she wanted to contribute to research on schizophrenia, and we do some of the best research in the world on that topic. And she was doing her bit by sending us $5. And I was happy to receive it and send her a handwritten note, just like we would do for someone who had sent us a check for $500,000.
I think that, well, VCU has come a long way. And it's been 45 years, but it's been 45 short years. VCU, when I got here, was only 7 years old. I didn't even think about that. As an institution, MCV and RPI obviously had been around longer than that. But VCU has done a whole lot in those 45 years. I mean, the physical structure of both campuses, the advances in research and education and service, they seem to make a lot of headlines, and most of them are good. And as I said before, they take care of their employees. So that's a good feeling.
There's so much variety here that no matter what you want to do, you can find a home here. If you want to be an accountant, you can find a home. If you want to be a clinician, you can find a home. And it's just a great place to be. And Richmond is lucky, I think, to have this organization.
Is up and coming and booming university. If you look back from when I first came here to now, you go and you're proud to tell people that, you know, you work at VCU. The people on the university makes me feel welcome very much. We laugh, we joke, we smile, you know. It's almost like family. So I'm just proud to be here.
I will tell you, though, if you were to ask me what advice I would give to someone starting out in the field or starting out fresh, I would say, do what you're passionate about. Love what you do. Don't settle. Always give your best. I look at the young nurses coming out today and I think, wow, they're impressive. So I want to thank VCU for the opportunities they've given me. I will continue on speaking out for the mentally ill, and I will do what I need to do to continue with working as long as I can, because probably my family would be happy for me not to be at home all the time.
I think what I've enjoyed most about working here is the fact it's the diversity, the people, and my being able to move around to different departments to find out, you know, just what the university is about and how people relate to other people. So it's been great. I was happy enough to stay all of these years, to the point that even when I retired, I came back. It's really been a wonderful journey.